Special Monday show. A special Black Monday presentation. I'm lucky enough to have Keys, the K from the Back Talk Brothers, joining me. Keys, what's up, brother?
Hey, Dan. It's a little weird to be on Monday, but yeah.
It is kind of weird. I'm trying this out. I want to be very clear. It's called Black Monday. There's been several firings. I never feel bad for an NFL head coach getting fired. It's a 7-figure job. If you manage your money right, as soon as you're hired on, you're set for life financially. I always feel bad for the people you don't hear about, all the assistants, guys that you have no idea, you've never heard of before. But usually if you're good enough to be an NFL head coach, you can usually land a 6-figure job, or you can make more money on TV. Depending on how good you are, of course. But there's a lot of guys that do TV that no longer coach that make more money on TV. So Herm Edwards is one of them. I love Herm Edwards on TV. Do not want him as my head coach, but I love Herm Edwards on TV. Keys, I have a list of all the firings as of right now. Now, there's still some talks. Rumors about Mike Vrabel getting the axe. Bill Belichick is also a possibility. Pete Carroll and Dennis Allen, there were some talks about them being fired, but it looks like as of now, they are all safe. Is there anybody that you think off the top of your head, just rapid fire here, somebody who could be gone in the next day or two that didn't get the axe today?
I mean, all the speculation out there is Belichick is gone, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that speculation. I'm in a minority. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to stay there, but there's a lot of talk about Belichick being gone. Are you expecting that to happen by tomorrow or maybe even next week?
I would think that if it happens, that Kraft has somebody in mind, whether that's, I know, as you've said multiple times, the rumor is Gerard Mayo, but if Vrabel himself got the axe, I mean, he played for New England in addition to Kansas City, so but I would think that if Kraft makes the move, he already has somebody in mind, and if it is someone like Gerard Mayo, maybe if we start hearing rumors that teams are requesting to interview him, that would expedite the process. I don't know. I would probably start to lean towards that it would be more if a team who fired someone has a coordinator who's being requested to be interviewed from other teams. And I'm trying to think who those are because I've went through some of those, but
there's a long list of names of people that are being requested to be interviewed. I don't have every one. I have a short list of who Washington is asking. But out of all the teams, I think Washington will probably hire, because they have a very interesting, it sounds like what Washington's doing is they're going to go the old school route where you hire a general manager first, and they're going to take their time and hire the right general manager, and then they're going to hire a head coach after they get the GM in play. I'm going to bring up the list here of everybody that up to date has been fired, and I apologize because I put in staff for Jacksonville because from what I'm told, they're just cleaning house on the defensive side of the ball. But I'm going to go over these here. This is the order that I heard them from. The Atlanta Falcons fired head coach Arthur Smith. Not really a surprise. Washington Commanders fired head coach Ron Rivera. Again, not a surprise. Carolina Panthers fired the general manager Scott Fitterer. I don't remember who the guy was. It came down between Fitterer and somebody from the Chiefs organization to be the Panthers general manager, and he went with Fitterer instead. Swing and a miss. The New York Giants, and by the way, Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, there's talks that he may also be gone. Giants let Wink Martindale actually resigned. He was under contract. Brian Dable said that he was expecting Wink Martindale, and I misspelled his name here. I apologize. But Wink Martindale was supposed to be back, and he resigned. They fired special teams coach Tommy McGalty, offensive line coach Bobby Johnson. Apparently, what the rumor was is that Drew and Kevin Wilkins, two of Wink Martindale's top guys, were fired. Wink Martindale bristled with this, decided to this is all kind of related. And I don't have here's what I heard specifically. Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell and his entire staff is going to be gone. Out of these, well, I'm going to say 5 because I'm just going to count Wink Martindale as one. Is there any surprises here, Keys?
I think for you it's Caldwell. I don't know. I think to me Martindale is, but I mean he didn't get fired. The resignation is still kind of surprising though. He's only been in New York for 2 seasons, and it's not like, I don't know, you don't usually see high profile defensive coordinators or names like that, resign 1 or 2 seasons in. It's usually, you're there until you get fired. Partially because you want to keep that money, right? Yeah. You'd rather get fired than resign because then you're giving up the money. But I think to me that, it's kind of surprising. And it really seemed like Brian Dable had an interesting process of assembling his staff to begin with, but clearly things aren't working there. So
I'm really surprised about this as well. And I know that I know they let go or they traded away Leonard Williams to Seattle. And my thought process was that when they made that trade is that they're trying to acquire trade capital because they want to trade up for a quarterback. I don't know if you remember this when the Bills Giants played. That was they shook hands, but Dable and McDermott, who worked together for a very long time, they do not like each other. So there's something. Brian Dable apparently rubbed some people the wrong way, and the reason why I put all these names down is because I think that there's a possibility that Dable, if he's not fired, is going to be my number 1 coach on the hot seat in 2024. It's public that you don't get along with the guy that you built something really good in Buffalo. And Wink Martindale's widely respected in the NFL. One of the best defensive coordinators, and he's resigning. I mean, that's huge. That is huge. And Wink Martindale, there was a possibility that he could turn around and be a head coach. That's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not expecting it, but it is definitely possible. I was surprised about Mike Caldwell personally. What are your thoughts here on this? Jacksonville, you weren't as high on Jacksonville as I was. I thought Jacksonville had the potential to be a Super Bowl team. I personally thought that Trevor Lawrence, he was my MVP prediction. He's not in the running, by the way, to be NFL MVP. That's probably not going to happen. But what are your thoughts on and apparently they're just going to clean house on the defensive side of the ball. Do you remember who the last Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator was?
Yes, I do. He is the defensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, Joe Cullen.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any rumors yet, but I'm kind of wondering if we could see a Colin reunited with Doug Peterson. I would really hate to see that.
Yeah, I'd be pretty angry if that happened.
Yeah, but I have to admit, it kind of makes a lot of sense. Another thing is that I mentioned this, he has a long relationship with Wink Martindale. If Wink Martindale became a head coach, which I think is unlikely, I have to think one of the top names on this list to be defensive coordinator would be Joe Cullen. So, yeah, I have to admit, I was really surprised about this. I really didn't see it coming. So the two defensive coordinators being fired, I was surprised. I'm surprised at how many coaches on the Giants was let go. But the top three, the Atlanta Falcons head coach, the Washington Commanders head coach, and the Carolina Panthers general manager, I am not surprised at all. Are any one of these three, are any one of these three throwing you for a curve, or were you surprised about any one of these?
I don't think so. Not too much.
Well, let's go through all three of these here real quickly. Here, Arthur Smith, former offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans, well respected in NFL circles. I believe it's his grandfather started Federal Express. So, I mean, he's not hurting for money. I think it's I'm pretty sure it's his grandfather. So, I mean, not a guy that's hurting for money. Well-respected offensive coordinator. What are your thoughts here? Is he somebody who's going to get any interest as a head coach? Is he going to get interviewed, or is he going to have to go back and be a coordinator assistant? What are your thoughts on Arthur Smith here?
Yeah, I don't think I can't imagine that he's getting another head coaching job. I think we're expecting to see if Belichick, Vrabel, if those two guys, even some of the other names that you've already thrown out, if any of those guys do lose their job, I would be utterly surprised to not see them end up in another team. And between that and, the Lions offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are hot names. Like, they are basically being tweeted out with every opening. Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, multiple people. So it doesn't seem like there's that big of it seems like a good number of these guys are going to fill up the head coaching vacancies. And I don't see where Arthur Smith is going to fit in there. Sure, maybe he can go somewhere and be an offensive coordinator back in the NFL. I don't even know about that. I don't even know about that for this next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm kind of thinking if some changes are made. I think the only way he would get hired on as a head coach is if Tennessee makes a move. There were some rumors a while back that if Belichick were to be let go, that Robert Kraft has supported Mike Vrabel and would make the move to take Mike Vrabel as head coach. There would have to be some sort of trade compensation, maybe some money would have to exchange hands. Remember when Gruden left to be the head coach of Tampa Bay, or something like $7 or $8 million. The Glazer family sent to Al Davis, which he spent on tracksuits. So bad joke.
Which is why he couldn't afford to get Mark a proper haircut.
I know that there's some talk about cash problems, but I mean, you're a billionaire. Get a decent haircut, Mark. Come on. So let's do this here because I'm going to take this down here with the Carolina Panthers. I don't think that's really a surprise that Scott Fitterer was let go. You made the trade so you could have the number one pick in the draft, and as of right now, you whiffed. I'm not saying that that's going to be true forever. I mean, Bryce Young. There's been lots of quarterbacks that have had bad rookie seasons. C.J. Stroud was my quarterback number one. I'm not saying Bryce Young can't turn it around, but as of right now, that looks like a horrible decision to take Young over Stroud. The Bears have your number one pick. You also have a 2025 second round pick that the Bears are going to get. So I don't think it's a surprise that he was let go. The 5 head coaching hires. I have my number one. I think it's pretty obvious who the number one is, but I'm kind of curious out of the 5 positions that are currently available. You have the Chargers, you have the Raiders, Carolina, and now Washington and Atlanta. All things being equal, you get a new general manager that you get along with. Which one is the best one that you, or let me say, Keys, guess what? You get to choose which one of these 5 jobs you want. You get along with the general manager. Which one do you take?
Well, you don't take the Raiders job simply because they can't afford to pay you very much. Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I think that there are a lot of things that would be appealing about the Chargers, such as you get Justin Herbert there, the weather, the stadium. On the flip side, though, they are projected to be like 50 million over the cap, if I recall correctly. Like
they have 6 players that contribute like 188 million. And they're all aging players. Bosa,
Herbert, right? Herbert's one of those. So.
And it's funny because he's only like 19 and a half. But the other 5, I'm trying to think: Derwin James, Bosa, Mack, I think Keenan Allen, and it might be Mike Williams.
Is it Williams? Yeah,
I think I don't know, but you have some major cap problems with the Chargers.
And Eckler is going to be a free agent.
Yeah, Eckler's. I would be shocked if Eckler wanted to come back there, to be honest with you. But let me throw this out. Wouldn't it be great to see him in a Chiefs uniform next year? I love.
Yeah, I said that in the RGR Discord during the game. Eckler and Justin Jefferson, make it happen.
I wouldn't know how we could get Justin Jefferson, but I think Austin Eckler is a possibility. I think that's definitely.
I told you, Chris Jones in your first rounder.
Chris, you heard it here, folks. It's going to be a Chiefs first round draft pick number 32. And Chris Jones to Minnesota for Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, you sign Austin Eckler in free agency, and you sign Christian Wilkins in free agency.
Oh God, Christian Wilkins is a guy that's going to attract a lot of attention. Seriously, it's funny. Wilkins might make more money than Chris Jones in free agency.
He's way younger.
Yeah, exactly, and he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of funny though because I've been watching Chris Jones play this year, and he seriously he's the last couple games of the season he's just been a wrecking crew. He's just been playing lights out. But so anyway, we went on a rant about the Chiefs here, but let's which job is the most appealing?
Yeah. So we got off on that tangent from the Chargers there. So I think there's enough there that it's not necessarily that appealing. Plus, I mean, the travel in LA, the tax rate, the whole political climate there. I think there's enough there. All the talk about how cheap the owner is. I think there's enough there that, and it's also in Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' division. I think Antonio Pierce is staying a Raider anyway. That just makes way too much sense.
That was going to be my next question.
I don't even think Mark Davis can screw that one up. Like,
that was actually my next question. Do you think Antonio Pierce stays with the Raiders? But let's just
who was it? Was it Devontae Adams? No, who was it? It was somebody who's been a lifetime Raider. Said they've never heard Raiders fans chant a coach's name until Raiders fans were chanting Antonio Pierce's name after the game yesterday.
Really?
I think that he is coming back once they complete the process that they have to.
Well, hypothetically, let's just say Mark Davis would take you over Antonio Pierce. Which one of these 5 jobs would you want?
I think you have new ownership in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to spend some money. You have Bieniemy there if you want him, which could be a pretty good plus. You could build off of that. It depends on if you're an offensive or defensive coordinator coming in as a head coach, though, what your area of expertise is. I think Carolina, just the position they put themselves in, is not a good position. So I'm kind of leaning towards Washington right now.
Washington would be the number one. So Key says Washington would be the number one. That would be your job if you could choose it. What makes the Washington position the most appealing out of these for you?
Well, as I said, the other ones have their things about them that make them much less appealing. So that's part of it, right? You have the new ownership group, a hungry new owner, and you still have pieces there. You have enough pieces to work with. So I think that they are going to get things done in the right way. I think it's interesting that they're looking at a team like the Lions, who have been so bad for so long and have seen a complete culture shift. I don't think it's that big of a shock to see them targeting Lions coordinators this year. So, I think all in all, the fan base there, it's not the easiest division, but as we've seen from Philly lately, as we've seen from Dallas, many of the last, dozen seasons or so, it's definitely not the hardest division either.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent. That would be a job that I would really think is one of the better jobs available. I do like it. One thing that also I didn't get touch base on was that you have an extra 2nd and 3rd round pick this year. The way it's going to work out is that you're going to pick 2nd, 36th, and 40th in this draft, and then you pick 67, and we'll have to see what the 49ers pick is. Right now, projected 95th, and that's if they lose the Super Bowl. So at worst, it's the 96th, 95th pick in the draft. It could be. We've seen it before. Teams go one and done, but I think at the worst, would it be 90th, something like that. So I mean, you're going to get 5 picks in the top 90. I got a list of. These are the people that Washington publicly has already requested to interview: Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, Lions defensive coordinator Ben Johnson, like you mentioned, Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, Ravens defensive line coach and assistant head coach Anthony Weaver, and Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald. I think if Mike McDonald leaves in Baltimore, there's a very good chance Wink Martindale, who we talked about earlier, he comes back to Baltimore as the defensive coordinator. I think that just makes a lot of sense. Defensive system wouldn't change that much. I think Baltimore's going to lose McDonald or Weaver. One or both of these guys may be gone, so that kind of makes a lot of sense. Washington, I think, is appealing. My number one pick is Atlanta. I think Atlanta is the most appealing. You have an owner going to spend a lot of money. I think you're in a weak division. I think they're the most talented team. All you need is a quarterback, and you pick 8th in the draft. So you have the 8th pick in the draft. You are missing, if I remember right, you're missing a second round pick. I'm drawing a blank date. No, you're not. Okay. You pick 8th, you pick 43rd, you pick 74th, and you pick 79th. So 4 draft picks in the top 79. I think if you're Atlanta and you want a quarterback in the draft, you don't go free agency. By the way, there's nothing wrong with looking at free agents. There's going to be some good players. I believe Darnold's on a 1-year deal. Gardner Minshew, I don't know if you watched that game or not. That's not Gardner Minshew's fault. Tyler Goodson dropped the ball. Do you remember where he went to college at, Keys? It's a Midwest school. I know that. But anyway, it's not his fault. Not his fault. I really like Tyler Goodson coming out of the draft, so don't blame him. I mean, listen, you get put in for the last play of the game, the biggest play of the game after you've been sitting on the bench the whole game. There's a lot of us that would do the same exact thing. So,
yeah.
But
or if you're the Chiefs receivers, you do it if you were playing the whole game.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it every game. It doesn't. Gardner Minshew can play. As I believe Sam Darnold's on a 1-year deal. Baker Mayfield's going to be a free agent.
Kirk Cousins
is a guy. You can go that route. I didn't see it. I saw the stat line, but I didn't watch the game. But Carson Wentz apparently looked really good. That's a guy that, hey, look, you don't want to trade up in the draft. And I say trade up. You're picking 8th. There's the big names at quarterback: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. You're going to tell me one of those? Those are the 5 big names. You're going to tell me one of those guys isn't going to be available at 8? So I'd like Atlanta. Let me ask you this here. Let's go flip side here. You like Washington? You think it's Washington? I think it's Atlanta. Let's go flip side here. Which one of these jobs is the least appealing one?
I think it's got to be the Panthers' job. Between all the capital they gave up, you have basically no wide receiver help in Carolina. The summers are terrible. I mean, you could question whether the fan base deserves a franchise. I don't know. I don't want to get too terrible on this. I don't want to turn some people off, but yeah, I mean, on the flip side, like you said, though, that division is easy to be had, but it's going to take some work. And we've already seen with ownership, you're not getting more than a year.
What's up, people?
So hey, what's up, One Pride here?
You guys missed me?
Yes, we did here. Give us one moment here. Keys was in his rant here, and I'm going to introduce you here. I just put you on stage here.
Oh yeah, I was just finishing up there with that thought. I think that's the whole last part of it, Dan. So terrible ownership.
Oh yeah, I'm going to say Panthers are the most unattractive job on the market because of David Tepper.
It's like being one of Leo DiCaprio's girls.
So one
Like,
problem, let me.
You're 24 and a half years old and you're the head coaching candidate, right? You're 24 and a half and Leo's looking at you and you know what's coming.
So one problem. Let me ask you this here: was there any surprises that happened? And I could bring this up again, but out of the positions that have been the positions that are open, head coaching wise, we have Arthur Smith was fired today. Ron Riviera, the Panthers. Scott Federer, the general manager of the Panthers. The New York Giants fired several people, but the biggest one is Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are letting go of Mike Caldwell. And the entire coaching staff, which I found to be very surprising. Is there any surprises here?
Martindale, all the way. What? You would think, like, with the Giants, one of the bright spots for them is their defense, and they got rid of their defensive coordinator.
Well, actually, he resigned.
Oh, he resigned?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought they just like gave him the axe.
No, he resigned. It was kind of what they did is they fired the special teams coach,
okay,
the offensive line coach, and two of his top assistants. And the rumor mill was that Martindale kind of bristled at his assistants being let go. But I know he resigned.
I was about to say, if like a Dable just fired Martindale, and Martindale's a pretty good DC, it would be really stupid on his part, in my opinion.
It's just that it's a little unusual. Are Lions fans crushing over Martindale coming to Detroit to replace Glenn? Oh, wait, that's actually a great question.
Actually, believe it or not, two teams requested Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Washington's going to talk to him. Who's the other one?
I think I'm going to say the Chargers. And Ben Johnson's got 3.
You know, Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson. Whoops, I'm sorry about that, Keys. I error on my part there. Ben Johnson's probably the biggest name and the most popular name on there. So I asked Keys this earlier. Just head coaching positions, all things being equal, which one is the most appealing to you?
Most appealing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Atlanta.
Yeah, I like Atlanta as well. Ben Johnson in Atlanta with Pitts and Bijan would be fun. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I'm thinking is because I'm looking at Atlanta at picking at 8, and you have an extra 3rd round pick. It would not surprise me if I'm Atlanta. I have no problems trading future draft capital to move up in this draft. But yeah, I like Atlanta. Now out of the 5. I think you already answered this here, but with the least appealing, you're going to stick with
is Carolina.
Yeah,
David Tepper. I mean, what else do you want me to say?
Chargers going with another defensive head coach like Mike McDonald would be interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of looking at what the Chargers are doing. So actually, I normally when I have people on, but I'm just kind of having an open forum here. I'm letting people come on. So I normally try to plan out questions. So I'm just throwing you some random curveballs here. With the Chargers position, who do you think that they're going to go with? Because a guy like Mike McDonald actually makes a lot of sense. I'm
probably just going to throw a dartboard, and this is going to be pretty shocking to both of you. He's a college coach right now, and he's smoking Washington right now. His name's Jim Harbaugh.
That's exactly who I have. I think Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers actually makes a lot of sense, even though the Chargers ownership has been notably cheap. And I kind of think that originally I was thinking I've been saying for a long time he's going to go with Chicago, but
Well, they said they're keeping
I
Eberflus.
I think they're going to stick with Eberflus at least for one more year.
Yep.
Keith, what's your thoughts here?
Now,
Mike McDonald makes a lot of sense, though.
I'm gonna ask you guys these two questions. Do they stick with Fields or they draft a QB?
Well, let me get to that in a second here. We'll go with the Chargers question first, and then we'll fire off with that one.
What's
All
that?
right. Sorry, what was it? What was the question?
Well, I was
Chargers
asking
question?
Keys about the Chargers position. Who do they think they're going to go with?
Yeah, to me, Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald make the most sense. Unless, well, no, because they can't afford Bill Belichick. So, I mean, I don't know. It's hard because are you going to be able to get one of those guys, right? I would expect those two to be the hottest names out there, right?
Oh, 100%.
I think the guy you're going to have to go after is someone like Eric Bieniemy, who he's had 5-6 seasons of getting passed over, and he might have to take less because you're going to only offer less because you can't offer a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bieniemy or you promote Kellen Moore. I think those are your only two options.
What I think the Panthers should do, I think they need to get a coach like Aaron Glenn, in my opinion.
Why is that?
Because like he's not a DC at all, but he's got a lot of leadership qualities, and I think that's what they need.
That's kind of interesting because I think if you're Carolina, even though normally I would tell you if you have an offensive-minded coach, go with defensive-minded coach. I think you need somebody who can really groom Bryce Young. I think you need somebody to work with that offense. But I mean that team. I think we all. I actually tell you the truth. I think out of all the jobs, I think the Chargers is the least appealing because of ownership and the fact that you'll probably get. In Carolina, you'll get paid, and with the Chargers, I'm not sure you will. But I think that Harbaugh going to LA because I think that he could also have one of the things that he's had issues with butting heads with ownership is about player control, and I think that in LA he would have player control very similar to what Pete Carroll has in Seattle. Where he's not the general manager, but he is the but he has a player control, but he has a general manager. I think Harbaugh would have that situation. The other teams that are available, I don't know if any one of them would really give them that type of a leeway.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
So I don't know if I'm like butting in too early, but who do you think takes the Washington job?
No, that's a great question. What was your first question that you had there?
Me? No, that was my question.
The Washington job? Okay.
Yes.
Well, so it's going to be interesting because I think Washington, because what they're doing is that they're going the old school approach. They're going to hire a general manager first, and the general manager is going to hire the guy. So because they have that type of structure, they're going to go after a first-time head coach. I think Ben Johnson would make a lot of sense, and I think when everything's said and done, Washington, who has the second pick in the draft, will end up with the number one pick in the draft.
Oh, so you think they're trading up for QB?
Absolutely. Washington will have the number one pick in the draft. They're going to take the local kid, Caleb Williams. I don't see any other situation other than that. So I think that you could go with an offensive-minded coach like Ben Johnson. You could also go with Mike McDonald as a defensive-minded guy and say, look, we're going to get an experienced offensive coordinator, somebody like Eric Bieniemy, Brian Griese, who's the quarterbacks coach in San Francisco, I think is a dark horse head coach candidate. I don't think I haven't heard too many people talk about him yet. He's only been the quarterbacks coach in San Francisco for a few years. Normally, you have to be a coordinator before you become a head coach. Andy Reid was never an offensive coordinator. He became a head coach. Brian Griese is somebody who, I mean, look, he took Mr. Irrelevant and was a large part of the reason why he became an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
So,
well,
that's a name that people aren't talking about, but this is a guy. If he wants to be, I think he could be a head coach in the next, if not this year, but maybe next year, even though he's not a coordinator.
See, there's going to be one coach of all these teams, and we're going to say, how the hell did he get that job? Pat McAfee said it best on his podcast. So he's telling me like hot coaching candidates and stuff like that. And you was saying is that you're gonna hear someone one of these teams are gonna hire a coach, and you're gonna wonder how the hell did he get that job.
Well, I mean, with the Washington job, to answer your question, I think it's going to come. I think it's going to be a first-time head coach, and I think Mike McDonald and Ben Johnson make the most sense. I do think Caleb Williams is going to be the quarterback. If you're Ben Johnson, how well do you work with a guy like Caleb Williams? Because Goff and Caleb Williams are different types of people. You could easily say, hey, look, Williams has more talent than Goff. So maybe it makes sense. Keys, what's your thought here on the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, I think it all start with Belichick. What happens with Belichick in New England?
Absolutely.
Like, if it was me, and I understand everyone out there is, you don't want Belichick to be the GM. I'm going to throw something out here. If he was willing, and maybe he would, because he's 72 now, and there's a little bit of tarnishment to his legacy. Let me throw this out here, Dan. You get Belichick. You probably got to trade something for him, though, right? Mm-hmm. It might not take a whole lot. You could offer them some kind of weapon they already don't have on their team. You don't even have to.
Has plenty of draft capital, so that would not be a problem.
See, I like Bill and all, but I think it's just time for him to hang up the headset, in my opinion.
So you trade for him, okay? Bring in a cap guy, someone to do the contract negotiations, trade negotiations, all that stuff, right? Not necessarily a GM. Then you bring in John Dorsey to do Bill's scouting for him. And I think that would be, I think those three moves would be a powerhouse move, because you neutralize the deficiencies of all three guys. And I'm saying that all three guys, we don't know who the guy would be to do the contract negotiation. I don't know who that guy is out there who can't scout, worth a crap. But John Dorsey can do that. And he can scout some positions much better than Belichick can, because he hasn't had a whole lot of luck, outside of Tom Brady, who almost doesn't count at the quarterback position. He hasn't had a whole lot of luck drafting wide receivers his whole time as a head coach, So, that's kind of my thing. And Dorsey sucks with people, and he sucks with cap management. So that's what I would do.
That's actually a great idea, and you're right. The whole Belichick situation is still a fluid thing. Same with Vrabel. The same with Pete Carroll in Seattle, even though Pete Carroll says he wants to come back. Same thing with Dennis Allen with the Saints, but we could have another name or two being let go. Perry, what's up, brother, man? I am fantastic. How are you doing up in the great north? So another good fit in LA would be Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan worked with Manning in Denver, now working with – that's a guy I think is going to get especially with the job that he did with Browning, getting him ready, changing the offense to utilize what he does. A guy like that with the Chargers makes a lot of sense because – as Keys has said many times, Joe Burrow's just a system quarterback. So what if you put him with a guy with real talent like Justin Herbert, and that offense could be explosive? Ben Johnson and Brian Callahan are two top offensive coordinator choices for me right now. Mike McDonald and Lou Anarumo is still my two top defensive coordinator choices. These are my coordinator guys who should get head coaching jobs this cycle.
Believe it or not, Steve Wilkes is in that conversation too for DC. Like top DCs.
Wilkes is an excellent hire, and I didn't have time, but I wanted to put a list of names, and Wilkes is an excellent name. He should have stayed in care. He should have been the hire.
He should have been the coach. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one pride. Let me ask you this here. I think me and Keys agree, which is kind of rare. No, I'm joking. Me and Keys agree a lot. Me and Keys are on the same page here. I want to ask you. What are the Raiders going to do at their head coach?
Oh, man. I mean, I could see them just bringing back Antonio Pierce. I mean, they're pretty broke right now, too.
Yeah,
so
that's a big part of it.
Yep. So I got two choices for them. Antonio Pierce or John Gruden. Bringing back John Gruden, yeah.
There's actually I saw an article right before I came on that Gruden may join the Saints coaching staff in some capacity. It might even be an advisory role. But I would actually be very interested to bring him back. But
I mean, heck, you're 65 mil in the hole already. Why not?
Well, there's some other considerations here, but I would be, you know what, I would be really shocked if Antonio Pierce wasn't the guy with the Raiders. If you pass on Antonio Pierce, I think the only name that you could really pass on him for would be somebody like Jim Harbaugh, but. Interesting point on Aaron Glenn getting a head coach job based on leadership. That's kind of a John Harbaugh type hire to me. He was in the top 5 NFLPA's player polls of NFL player. Yeah,
and that's really shocking to me.
Yeah, One Pride sent that link to me. Players voted the coordinators they liked the best, and Aaron Glenn was number 1. That was really surprising.
Yeah,
to me. Callahan could also work with the Panthers, I guess, pair with Bryce. That actually would make a lot of sense. And global warming, my ass. It's so when the Chiefs play the Dolphins, Perry, it's not going to be -25, but it's going to be single digits in snow. So the Dolphins could have played a home game there in Miami. Instead, they're going to come to Kansas City where it's going to be single digits and snow. It's going to be miserable here.
Speaking of which, a little off topic, there's a chance that Laporta plays on Sunday.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. I was kind of disappointed that they didn't have the Rams-Lions game on Monday. They went with Philly-Tampa Bay, which I don't understand at all.
Yeah.
Callahan makes a lot of sense with the Panthers. I mean, look at what he did. If you look at what Jake Browning did and how he changed the offense, a lot of what he did with Browning would make sense with Bryce Young. They talked about it, and I don't remember off the top of my head. There was an interesting thing about Jake Browning's contract. But if I was Callahan, and I would love to bring Browning with me. I mean, you may be able to get him for something cheap. So, Are the Pats picking top 5? As of right now, they are picking 3rd. They're picking 3rd in the draft, and 100% about Wilkes on his own. On the flip side, San Francisco is ironically flipping out defensive coordinator's head coach. It's a pipeline. Salo, Ryans, whoever the DC is in San Francisco, they always get to work with premium talent. No, I agree completely. And I think Wilkes should have stayed on at Carolina. And that's kind of another thing about Antonio Pierce with the Raiders job. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it as well. Keys, let me ask you this here. Wilkes, which position do you think Wilkes would be best suited for out of the 5 that are currently available?
The interesting one could be staying in California. Like he's lost He's had a head coaching job and lost it. We've already talked about that position as one where you're not going to spend a lot of money on it. So it could make sense that you bring him in to the Chargers. I mentioned, I understand. I think Ben Johnson makes a lot of sense. Bieniemy makes some sense. Mike McDonald makes some sense. But, maybe Steve Wilkes makes a lot of sense there as well.
Wilkes in LA does make a lot of sense. You had success as a head coach. I thought he did an excellent job when he took over for Carolina. Just an amazing job. You also had the possibility, if you hire a defensive-minded guy, of keeping Kellen Moore and some of that offense intact. Or if you're an offensive-minded coach, it's highly unlikely you would be able to keep a guy like Kellen Moore.
Even Lou Anarumo makes a lot of sense there as well, because you have someone who has the ability, right? It's not a knock on Wilkes because he's a great coach. Obviously, D'Amico Ryans is a great coach. We're seeing that this season. So yeah, these guys have a lot of talent, to play with, but they're still great coaches. Robert Saleh, without being drugged down by the quarterback position,
I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of surprised he didn't get fired though.
I think he's a good enough coach that you can't really. Zach Wilson is a terrible quarterback. The quarterback room in there behind Aaron Rodgers was terrible. That's the GM's fault. And you bring in Aaron Rodgers, personal offensive coordinator, just like Denver did last year when they were trying to get Aaron Rodgers to Denver. And it's like, Robert Saleh is in an impossible position there. But anyway, my point was Lou Anarumo makes a lot of sense because the biggest thing is Lou Anarumo knows how to put a defense together, and he's done it with less talent, but he knows how to put a defense together that stymies Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I think that's a big draw as an AFC West team.
Lou's a good
completely.
Lou's a good option for sure. It's
kind of funny because Lou Anarumo is a guy that me and Keys have been very high on, but because the ratings for the defense, the number ratings that people look at because the world's obsessed with it, people like PFF, he's not getting consideration where he got consideration last year. He's not getting consideration this year, but he should. He's a guy that I think would be an excellent hire. I think the Chargers really should at least talk to the guy. Perry asked, anybody get fired today? This is the list. The Atlanta Falcons fired Arthur Smith. Washington fired Ron Rivera. The Carolina Panthers fired the general manager, Scott Fitterer. The New York Giants are just cleaning staff, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to fire the whole coaching staff. So that's kind of what you're looking at.
Now, do you see any coaches getting fired after the playoffs? Let's say Tampa Bay gets bounced out. Do you think Bowles gets fired?
No, I don't. I think Bowles getting to the playoffs. Unless the Eagles win 59-0, I really would be surprised. I think Bowles has earned one more year. They had some offensive line issues. Baker Mayfield coming in. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I think that because they're still talking about Mike Vrabel and with Bill Belichick, because that could be very, very interesting. So we may still have one firing left. You're not alone in saying that Robert Saleh should be fired. I agree with Keys. I think the general manager and the offensive coordinator, you have talent there in that quarterback room. You should have been able to make it work. I don't think Zach Wilson's an NFL quarterback, even though there's flashes of greatness.
I'm going to take an L on that one. I was high on him on the draft.
I was too.
Yeah, I got egg on my face now because of him. Thank you very much, Zach.
Perry says, I hope Anthony again gets a head coaching job so we can get a new defensive coordinator, or defensive suspect, or a weakness link. Seriously, a Wink
Don't be surprised if he
Martindale,
does get one, though. Don't be surprised if he does.
Wink Martindale would also make a lot of sense in Detroit. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, that would.
That would be a lot of fun. Let me ask you this here. You're our Lions fan here, One Pride. Aaron Glenn, which position makes the most sense?
Out of all the head coaching jobs?
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, there's a few that need leadership, in my opinion. I'd probably have to go with Washington or Carolina.
I can see both of those. I think if Joe Alt or the other offensive tackles on the board should be the Pats pick. I'm gonna let you in on a secret, Perry. The Patriots picked third in the draft, and there's going to be a lot of talk about what the Patriots are going to do. I think the Patriots at 3 are going to take Joe Alt, and I think a lot of people are going to be pissed. But I think that's what's going to happen. So,
they kind of need Joe Alt anyway. I mean, they need a lot of things on offense anyway.
They do. But in this situation, I think that what you do is anyway, I won't get into that. I could kind of rant on, but I think if Joe Alt's available at 3, and I think he will be, I think that's what the Patriots are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Brian Dable is looking for a new. Yeah, Brian Dable. That's just kind of a crazy situation in New York, and it wouldn't even surprise me, Perry, if Brian Dable gets the axe.
Not this year. I don't see it this year, but if he's just absolutely terrible next year, yeah, he's gone.
Lou will have to find an offensive coordinator. Yeah, absolutely, Perry. Absolutely.
That's the issue with DCs nowadays, is that you got to find a good offensive coordinator.
Well, I mean, there's some good names available. I liked what Brian Dable did when he put his coaching staff together. I thought Wink Martindale was genius.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying he was an offensive guy. Dable was an offensive guy.
Exactly.
It's a lot easier to find a DC than it is an OC. You know what I mean?
Key says, I think if a team or two gets bounced from the playoffs, depending on what the head coaches are available, one could get fired. I don't think so, but you bring up a good point here. Bowles was a candidate to get fired. Since he's taken over, the team's kind of dipped a little bit. Out of the playoff teams here, is there anyone else except Bowles, Keys, that you think could get fired?
Yeah, check the next comment here.
I don't think it would happen.
It's not that I think it's going to happen. It's just it would be interestingly. I wouldn't like it if it happened. So it would be interesting if it did, though.
You really think McDermott could be fired if the Bills lose?
No way. I see McDaniels getting McCarthy.
Remember earlier this season when we were talking about the possibility of McDermott getting fired?
We did talk about it. We did talk about it. And by the way, look, I mean, if you're the 2 seed and you lose to Pittsburgh, which by the way, Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph looks like they found something. If Pittsburgh bounces you in the first round, that's definitely a possibility.
Also, for next year, don't be surprised if Nick Sirianni is a hot seat candidate next year.
That's always a possibility. Philly's a weird town.
Listen, I'm not saying that they should fire McDermott, but I'm saying go ahead and monkey branch. If someone who's better comes available, why not? Because McDermott isn't getting you over the hump. Belichick has 6 Super Bowl rings. His biggest problem the last 5 years is he's either had an old Tom Brady or no Tom Brady. He's seen now for 3 years, 4 years, what Josh Allen can do to a defense. So if you were to take Belichick's mind and all that other stuff with it, and you combine it with Josh Allen, I'm just saying as a Chiefs fan, I would hate that a lot more than facing Josh Allen with Sean McDermott.
That makes a lot of sense. I personally would be really surprised. I mean, really surprised if and if any one of these coaches was fired. But you bring up some good points. Bowles, McDermott, Mike McCarthy's another one. One prize.
Yep.
You got a good point. If Dallas loses in the first round, I've drawn a blank. They play Green Bay.
I mean, I did read some recent reports about it too. Is that if they don't do well in the playoffs, McCarthy gets the axe.
That's always a possibility in Dallas. Perry says I thought him and Lance were a project. I'm not sure what you're saying here, Perry. It's the man, the great one, the myth, the legend, Gooch, man, great to see you in the comments, brother. Inaugural Black Monday show. I don't know if I'm gonna do it next year, but yeah, man, I'm glad to see you. And by the way, Theory,
so I want to ask you guys this question: who are your hot seat candidates for next year?
Well, number one's Dable. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I was talking about this earlier in the show that when him and McDermott shook hands, they hate each other. And he was in Buffalo for several years, turned around Josh Allen's career. Now, Wink Martindale, one of the most respected defensive coordinators, leaves. It's got to be Dable.
Yep. Well, he's definitely on my list. There's going to be a lot next year, it feels like. So I'm going to say Saleh.
You think Saleh?
Oh, 100%.
I think that one would depend. Is Aaron Rodgers completely healthy? Are they losing games because of the defense or Saleh making bad game management decisions? I think that's the only path for that to happen, unless again somehow like an amazing head coach becomes available.
That's always a possibility. I mean, one thing is that when if a better head coach becomes available, when if you brought in somebody like Jim Harbaugh to the Jets organization.
Mm-hmm. I could also see this one might shock you guys. Kevin O'Connell
for the Vikings.
Yeah,
that would shock me. Explain that one.
Well, he's really wishy-washy to me. So 1 year, he's riding high, wins the division championship, but he only wins games by one score. Then he just face plants this year and he wins 7 games, but there's a lot of injuries with that. And he hasn't had a great offense this year. You know what I mean? And it depends what he does next year. So if he falls flat on his face next year, he's gone. In my opinion,
I could see it for one reason, and that's because Brian Flores is as advertised, is as I tried to tell people before the season began. So you could fire him, and I think you could feel a pretty good level of comfort for Flores to come in as your head coach and still have a great defense. And then it would be a matter of, and you could be rebuilding the offense, right, Dan? I mean, if Kirk Cousins leaves elsewhere, you trade Justin Jefferson to Kansas City, for Chris Jones and a first-round pick. I mean, you could be rebuilding this, this offense.
I don't think Justin Jefferson's going to go anywhere, but but yeah, you're
Wouldn't
right.
it be crazy if he went to the Bengals? Wouldn't it just be wild if he went to the Bengals?
Well, you came in a little late here. So Keith said that Justin Jefferson will be a chief for Chris Jones and a first-round pick. Perry says Alt is a franchise. I think okay. So Perry, I'm not going to do a big board, but if I did, it would probably go Marvin Harrison, Joe Alt. I think Alt is going to be that good.
100%. You put him over Caleb Williams and Drake May, though?
I haven't watched them play yet. I still haven't watched them play. I can't wait. I got the Michigan-Washington game on DVR. I have a major man crush on Rome Odunze. I'm not sold on Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, I don't care what he weighs at. He's never played a football game over 200 pounds. I said the same thing about Bryce Young.
Now, what about McCarthy?
McCarthy on hot seat?
No, the quarterback.
Oh, I don't understand the hype about McCarthy at all. I saw that he was hitting some first round, getting some first round hype. I've never seen it. I'm hearing third round. I actually would not be surprised if he falls like to 6th or 7th round.
I think he's a late rounder in my opinion.
That's what I see. I've never been sold on McCarthy at all. I think Philly could get upset if they don't play. Absolutely, they could. The Bucks. Listen, Carolina has some offensive problems, but shutting out an NFL team is impressive. The defense has been playing really good. There's tons of talent on defense. It's just the offense has been iffy, but Baker's not playing bad.
No, he's not. I think he found a home in Tampa.
He's a free agent.
I think they need to resign him. I think he fits perfectly with Tampa.
He's a free agent as of right now.
I know. I'm just saying, though.
No, if I'm Baker, I'd stay in Tampa, but
and I think Dennis Allen next year will get the axe.
Dennis Allen, okay. Well, there's still talk about him later on in the week.
Well, they're saying they're retaining him right now, though.
Yeah, there's still discussions, so it's still up in the air. I think McDermott has lost the locker room. I don't know about that because they kind of rebounded. I think they're 6-7, won 4 straight. That was an impressive win against Miami. The team, you usually don't give up a 95-yard touchdown, but one adjustment that I really liked is that Miami was running the ball all over Buffalo, and in the second half they changed things up defensively and really stopped the run and really shut down that offense. I was really surprised at how Miami's offense went from just destroying the Bills' defense to just not being able to get a first down. When does Dable to New York Allen regress? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding. Little love here, trying to get out. It's snow and keep hearing it's going. Hey, I don't come here to the Midwest. Okay, I thought Lance and Wilson are projects. They were risk reward. Yeah, they were. Both of them were risk reward. Same thing with Josh Allen. One thing about the quarterback position is that you need external factors to be there. I was kind of expecting Zach Wilson to grow under, Aaron Rodgers and with Nathaniel Hackett, this great offensive coordinator. It didn't work. Trey Lance, it'll be interesting to see what he does with his career. I mean, as far as I know, he hasn't touched the field yet this year as the backup quarterback in Dallas. So, so check this out, Gooch. I don't have Peacock either. I have YouTube TV, and I have to subscribe for Peacock in order to get the game. I just found this out. So even though I'm local, I'm still not getting the game. So I'm a little mad about that.
Hey, I thought I read that if
I'm back. What's up, guys?
If Channel 41, right, that's the NBC for Kansas City, is carrying it, and that's your local NBC, you can still watch it through. I thought that was the case. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have YouTube TV, and even though I get the local channels, I have to sign up for Peacock in order to get it. So that's kind of messed up.
Well, Peacock's only $5 too, by the way.
I know. I don't want to. I mean, I already pay enough stuff. I don't want. I shouldn't have to. In order to watch my local team, I shouldn't have to pay. Could Harbaugh and A-Rod coexist? I don't know, but I'll be honest with you. I don't know any Jets fans. There's not. We need to get more Jets fans in this community. But if you could choose between Harbaugh and Saleh, which one would you take? I kind of think this is kind of a no-brainer here.
Harbaugh.
That's just me.
I'm taking Harbaugh. Are you kidding?
The game will be shown in the watch party. I'm going to do play-by-play live, but I just found out today I have to sign up for Peacock, so I'm kind of mad about that. The quarterbacks will be taken high. That might push Alt to the Pats at 3. Harrison and Alt will be impact. So here, Perry, I'm going to ruin this for you, but here's how I see the draft. Washington's going to pick number 1. They're going to go from 2 to 1. They're going to take Caleb Williams. Chicago is going to stay at 2. They're going to get some offers, but I think that they stay at 2. They're going to take Marvin Harrison. And I think New England at 3 will stick with Joe Alt. And then Arizona at 4 is where the draft gets interesting because somebody's going to trade up for Arizona at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the draft gets interesting because the Chargers pick 5th. They're not going to take a quarterback. The Giants at 6. I don't know what they're going to do. Tennessee at 7 is not going to take a quarterback. And then I've said this several times already. Atlanta, who picks 8, they're in the market for a quarterback. Atlanta could, in theory, maybe trade up to 2 or 3. But I think that when everything's said and done, I think Chicago's just going to say, let's just take Marvin Harrison Jr. and call it the day. And I think Joe Alt's just going to blow people away. And I think Bill Belichick's just going to fall in love with the guy. You don't give up for the risky quarterback like Williams or the other guys. Well, part of the reason why I think Caleb Williams is going to be in Washington is he's from the D.C. area. You have a business group that's taking over. It's a business investment. So that's part of it. And by the way, you have extra draft capital to burn. So unless something else happens, I'm probably, when I start doing my mock drafts, I'm probably going to have Washington, Chicago flip picks and have Washington with Caleb Williams. So
I don't know. I don't know what the Bears are going to do with Fields. To be honest, are they going to keep him? Are they going to let him go? I mean, there's a lot of questions with that.
That was the question you asked earlier. I think you keep him. Keith, what's your opinion here on the Bears and Justin Fields?
I think it depends on what you do with the head coaching position. I would rather see him a year with a legit offensive guy and let him kind of make that determination.
Sure. I can see that, absolutely. But let me tell you, when in that Green Bay game, I noticed that Justin Fields is terrible under pressure.
A lot of NFL quarterbacks are.
I'd like to see, another thing is I'd like to see Chicago fix up that offensive line, and that's another consideration. But I have a hard time if you have Marvin Harrison Jr. and you have Joe Alt. I have a hard time seeing the Bears not go with Marvin Harrison. I might, if I'm the Bears picking at 2, I might take Alt and let Harrison go. But
shoot, man, I don't know. Like, you have Marvin Harrison's one of the best wide receivers to come out of the draft since Megatron. And that's saying a lot.
See, if I'm Chicago and I'm picking 9th, all right, you can get another receiver at 9. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver prospect coming out ever.
Oh, 100%.
There's never been anybody. And Keyshawn Johnson went number 1 overall. I can't remember what draft that was. I want to say 96.
Well, as I said, he's the closest thing to Megatron you'll ever get.
It's funny because I don't compare the two at all. When Megatron came out, he had a lot of red flags. He played in an option offense. There's questions about route running. There's questions about hands. He had I think it was 29 or 39 catches coming out of that triple option offense. He was just a size speed freak, but there was lots of questions. And then, Detroit, they chose Charles Rogers 2nd overall. Then they whiffed on Mike Williams. They picked him 9th or 10th overall. So, I mean, I don't think they're the same at all. But if you're Chicago, do you pass up a guy like Harrison? You may not, but I'm looking at 9, and you could get your tackle there. But it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do. But I fully expect Washington to have number 1 pick in the draft. Key says Rodgers to the Dolphins. Tua isn't the most quarterback in the NFL, despite what Tyree says. Unless accuracy to opposing defenses is the measure.
Oh man, Keys.
Keys is on fire. Perry asks, do you think A. Smith will get another head coaching job? If not, where would he end up at? Not this offseason. Well, you know what? We got. Let me do this here. I'll talk this one real fast. He won't get a head coaching job this year, but he could later on down the line. I think if Vrabel leaves Tennessee, it wouldn't surprise me if Arthur Smith goes with him as the offensive coordinator. We'll have to look at some of these offensive coordinator positions. There's some talk about Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator, also leaving since Dable's doing some stuff.
It's do or die for Dable. Like next year is like, if it doesn't work out for him next year, gone.
But I'm thinking wherever Vrabel goes, and it wouldn't also surprise me to see him go back to Tennessee as well.
I can see that. Well, they're not going to have Derrick Henry next year, though.
He's a free agent.
Henry's a free agent?
He's a free agent. He said his goodbyes after the game, but
yep.
If I'm Tennessee, I might say, you know what? I got this young quarterback. I like the 1-2 combo. The offensive line's coming together. Maybe we'll find out. Perry says, I think the Bears need to build the team and get the quarterback later. Let me ask you this, Perry. Would you stick with Fields? Because I personally would. Keys, what's your thoughts here? Justin Fields do you keep him? Do you draft May or Caleb Williams?
I'm going to repeat what I said about 4 minutes ago. I think you bring in an offensive-minded head coach, let him have a year with Fields, and let him make that determination.
Gotta get rid of the head coach. I think that I don't think that they're going to do that. I think they're going to stick with Eberflus. Keith says, how many Super Bowls did Detroit win with Megatron? They had a much better quarterback than Fields and Stafford. You have a good point. I mean,
you do.
Yeah.
So you're saying you would take Joe All over Marvin Harrison for the Bears?
I would not personally. Keys, what's your opinion?
I think I would try to trade down and accumulate as much draft capital as I could.
I mean, Bears already pick at 9th again. I mean, if I'm the Bears, I would take the best available offensive lineman at 9. The way this draft goes, you could get Fassanu, the left tackle out of Penn State. You may be able to get him at 9. But Harrison is not fall. Honestly, if Harrison gets the 4 and I'm Arizona, I might just take Harrison at 4.
Honestly, not gonna lie, that like those 2 tackles remind me so much of like when Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater came out. I was like, oh, who's better, Rashawn Slater or Penei Sewell? Who are you gonna pick?
It's funny because I remember hearing about that, but I thought Sewell was head and shoulders better than Slater. But and the reason why is I thought Sewell had much more upside. I still thought Sewell could have been a candidate to move inside. But I mean, he's gonna get a lot of money here in the very near future. And Slater, after missing last season's had an up and down year last year, but as a rookie, he looked like an absolute stud.
Yeah, Slater's still a good tackle though, but he's no Sewell.
Well, when he comes back, when he came back from injury, he really hasn't looked the same. He really didn't look the same as he did as a rookie. Where are the Bears picking with their own pick? Maybe they should trade at 3 with the Pats and pick up both Harrison and Alt. Well, the Bears pick 1 and they pick 9. And I'm telling you right now, here's what I think they're going to do, Perry. I think they're going to trade down. I think they take Harrison at 2, and I think they take the best offensive lineman they can at 9. That's kind of my thought process. So The Giants GM needs to get this draft right. Yeah, I mean, they pick it. So the Giants have some extra trade capital in the draft here, but they pick 6, and then they pick 39th and 47th. And the biggest question you have to ask is that, do you take a quarterback? Because if you don't, you're in an excellent position to trade down, but you have an opportunity to do something with the quarterback if you want. So I would for now and see if he can improve with more talent. Do you think the Titans regret not having a fire sale at the trade deadline? That's a great question, Keys. Era One Pride, what do you think?
Oh, what was the question? Sorry.
Do you think the Titans regret not having a fire sale at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I think they regret that. I think there's some tradable pieces on that roster that they could got some capital out of, because they weren't going anywhere anyway. So sell some players. Shit, why not?
I know that I don't think they should have got rid of Hopkins. And the reason why is that I'm going with Will Levis next year as my starter. I would still kept Hopkins, but if you could have gotten something for Derrick Henry instead, that's a possibility. You don't have a 3rd round pick in the draft, but you pick 7 and you pick 38. I'm looking at set. Oh, go ahead.
The 2 players that have gotten you a boatload of capital, but I'm not sure they really wanted to trade them 2 guys is is Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry.
Well, I know both those guys. That would have been a hard move for both those guys because they signed them to some deals during the offseason. It would have been a tough financial decision, but a lot of people thought Hopkins should have been moved. I think that you don't move Hopkins because you're looking at Levis and give Levis that security blanket of how good do you think Hopkins is? I think he's easily a top 10, but is he top 5? That's debatable, but I think he's top 10. But you could have moved Derrick Henry and gotten something for Derrick Henry, especially Spears looks really good. You pick 7th overall. You could have some fun with this pick. You still have some offensive line issues. You could add a stud on defense. I mean, you could do something really, really good here at 7, but you don't need a quarterback, so you could trade down. But yeah, I think that they could have made a move or 2, but not Hopkins. Old should be the Bears pick or trade down for a King's ransom. They could fill a lot of holes with draft. Yeah, absolutely.
Alter Ulu.
I'm sorry?
Alter Ulu, one of them 2 tackles, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Lulu.
Ulu fashion now.
The Penn State left tackle.
Yep.
That's a guy that I'm looking at 9. Chicago could do that. I don't put all the blame on Dable and Salah. There's GM. Yeah, absolutely. In New York, you messed up by. I thought it was a big mistake giving Daniel Jones all that money. Now you're picking at 6. What do you do here? I think a quarterback makes a lot of sense if I'm the Giants, but you also need a receiver. So yeah, I and with Salah, a whole Jet situation. You got offensive line issues. I think the offensive coordinator didn't make enough adjustments, but that's going to be a fun team next year, and we'll see what the Giants do this offseason. I'm not opposed to the Bears drafting Harrison, but if I was them, I would be hoping some team would be offering a Ricky Williams trade. And you know what, Keys, you bring up a great point because you pick again at 9. You're going to get, let's say you want a wide receiver. When if Roma Duze is available at 9 and you have a similar draft grade, that makes a lot of sense. But that's another thing is that there's no problem. You could easily have the Bears going from 1 to 2 and then 2 to wherever. I'm looking at Atlanta at 8. I think Atlanta would give a King's ransom and next year draft capital to get up. And if you're Washington, why not? You know.
All right, I'm gonna head out, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, man, thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate it. They would just sign Simpson to a big contract. He's young and you could build around him. Plus, the cap hit would hurt. You're talking about the Miami Dolphins defensive tackle, and if you do that, I mean, does this mean you don't sign Tua? That's kind of an interesting point. So,
shouldn't sign Tua.
It's funny. I'm going to try to get Pete with Pete Stakes to come on here, and Pete with Pete Stakes is a big Dolphins fan, and he's somebody who's been adamant about not signing Tua to a long-term deal. He thinks Tua is a weakness to this team rather than a strength. I'm going to try to get him on Friday, but that's going to be an interesting story because I've kind of said this over and over again. He signed Herbert for over $250 million. Burrow signed for $275. Do you want to give Tua that type of money? Like, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. And you can get cheaper options in free agency. And then at 24, when somebody like Bo Nix is available. If A-Rod was healthy, the Jets would have been fighting for a wild card. Oh, absolutely. Listen. If Perry, if A-Rod was healthy, I think they might have won the East. So, no, the Titans. Simpson of the Titans. I'm drawing a. I'm sorry, Perry. I'm just drawing a complete blank here.
Jeffrey Simmons.
Oh, okay, Jeffrey Simmons. Oh, okay, yeah, Jeffrey Simmons. They did sign him to a big contract. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's correct. But the cap hit would hurt. Okay, yeah, So, I wouldn't have done anything with Jeffrey Simmons or Harold Landry. Those are building blocks. And keep in mind, if you plan to move on from Vrabel, you might as well just clean house. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. But Keys, man, I don't have too much more. I'll be honest with you. I was really expecting a little more head coaches than Arthur Smith and Ron Rivera. Normally there's a surprise. I didn't see one, but there's still a possibility. Pete Carroll's still been talked about. Dennis Allen's still being talked about. Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick. These are all names that we're not sure about. Simmons, by the way, Simmons, I love Jeffrey Simmons. I would not move him, but he does have some. Let me ask you, Keith, because you're the one who brought it up. Would you have moved Jeffrey Simmons at the trade deadline?
I don't think you can with that cap hit. It's
a big cap hit, man.
Yeah, it's huge. I'd have to look to see what it would be to trade him because it's obviously different to trade than it is to straight out cut someone. But let's see. No, actually, this over the cap makes it look like you could trade him, and it's like $4.8 million in cap hit, dead cap, 2 years. Post June 1st trade. So maybe they could have traded him.
Do you think they should have?
If this is right, if what I'm looking at is right, and you're saving 17 million, 18 million, 20 million, 23 million on a guy who's going to be 27 next year with the way this team looked, I think if you even had an inkling that you might move on from Mike Vrabel, I think so. If you were sure you were going to keep Mike Vrabel there, then I think you probably hang on to him.
That's kind of my thought process exactly. I know Vrabel was beyond pissed when the Titans got rid of A.J. Brown. He was not a happy camper about that, and I was kind of wondering if Titans had a bad year like they did this year, would they want to move on from Vrabel? And I would be shocked if they did, but it is something that's been talked about quite a bit. Perry says, I think the Fins need to tag Tua and with a draft picks tags and see if a team will bite and take draft capital. I think they should too, Perry. And by the way, if you're available Friday, I'm going to hopefully Pete with Pete's takes will join us and give us the Dolphins point of view. But Pete's been adamant that Tua is not the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, despite what Tyreek Hill says. But yeah, I would go in a different direction if I was Miami. You don't want to give them the big time deal. Let me ask you this, Keys. Let's say the Dolphins don't sign Tua. Where would be a good landing spot for Tua?
Maybe Denver with Sean Payton.
Oh God, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Especially if they move on from we didn't even talk about Russell Wilson being moved on. We haven't brought up that at all. Robert Kraft got to turn the Pats around faster. He'll lose much money going forward. I can say this comfortably. There's not too many owners I can say this about, but Robert Kraft's one of them. Is not worried about losing money. Not worried about losing money at all. There are reports the Lions are putting in an offer for Simmons. I didn't know that. Did you hear about this, Keys? Because that is news to me. But I'll be honest. I was expecting a head coach firing to be to come in as a surprise. I haven't seen one, but I was really floored about Wink Martindale resigning and Mike Caldwell being fired. I have to admit, I was really surprised about Caldwell. Hill was just trying to be a good teammate to Tua. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Nobody believes that Tua is a more accurate quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. I don't care what he says. So, Keys, I really don't have too much more else here. Do tune in to the K and the Back Talk Brothers Wednesday night, 7:30. They have a really good show. I'm excited about it. I usually work Wednesday nights, but I try to listen to it when I can. But I will also have George, aka Riley, coming on tomorrow. There is not a better football better in the world as far as I'm concerned. You don't want to miss that show tomorrow. Any final thoughts, questions, concerns, anything at all before we wrap up here?
Nothing to be said other than I wouldn't be surprised if come next Monday there's at least 2 games that we're like, what the hell happened?
2 games. Like 2 games. Really? Okay.
There's got to be some upsets, right?
I'm gonna have my picks video out tomorrow. Ideally, I'll have it at noon. It may be a little late because, but I'll have that. I'll have a picks video and I'll have an interview. And if by the way, with Pete, I'm trying to talk Keys into coming on Friday, so hopefully I can get Keys to join me Friday as well, and it'll be a good talk. Hopefully I can lock down Pete, and hopefully I can lock down Keys, and hopefully we'll have 3. But join me tomorrow. We'll have, I consider, the best NFL better on the planet. And guys, have a good night, and I hope everybody comes back tomorrow.